objective. To deliver the NBA to you like no other. News. Play breakdowns. Power rankings. Storylines you never hear talked about. Anywhere else. It's all straight shots here. Fired by straight shooters. S and Gunn. This is the Objective Basketball Podcast.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Objective Basketball Podcast. My name is Esfandiar Baraheni, joined by Lauren Gunn. If I'm not my usual cheery self, it's because it's been a wild day in the NBA, a tough day in the NBA. Lauren, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the games, but the Celtics and the Warriors tipped off. On the side, the Raptors and Timberwolves were tipping off in a game that was pivotal for the franchise, but I'll talk about that after we talk about this Celtics-Warriors game, which was it was as if you ripped it right away from the NBA Finals. The intensity was there. Obviously, the Celtics pulled it out in overtime, 121-118. And the intensity to me was something that kind of stuck out immediately because, obviously there's a history between these two teams dating back to the finals. And with the way that Jason Tatum performed in the finals, I think the way that he started out this game, a lot of people jumped to react to that because he did struggle. He finished the game with 7 turnovers. I believe he was 8 of 25 in the fourth quarter, and he finished the game 9 of 27. But still, I think one of the things that caught my attention was the fact that they were resilient enough to pull out this win. A Celtics team last year, the Celtics team, pretty much the exact same team outside of Malcolm Brogdon, probably would have withered away in that situation, especially with Tatum struggling a little bit offensively, them not getting into their feels. I think the Warriors did a lot of good things to make them uncomfortable. Yeah. And the fact that they were resilient enough to pull this out, the fact that their defense was resilient enough to kind of make the Warriors uncomfortable back, that was really important to me. And I think that's a stepping stone. I think maybe it's a mental hurdle that they had to get over where it's like, we can beat this team even if our best player isn't shooting the lights out. So I don't know. I don't know if you had any kind of takeaways from that too, but I think that was the first thing that kind of caught my attention was, hey, this team has changed. Something has clicked this year. It's that whole not championship swagger, but we've been here before. We know how this is type of swagger. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's the key because we talk a lot about, young teams and kind of even just going off of our last episode where we talked about young cores. There reaches a point where you're still young, but you do kind of have that swagger and that level of preparedness where you can now compete at the highest level. And I liked what you said about maybe a year ago, maybe they would have folded and wouldn't have been able to turn that one around. But you look at guys like, this is where guys like Al Horford and Malcolm Brogdon and guys that have experience really come in and just help guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who, in my opinion, have always been mature players just from the second they got into the league and from the way they play, the way they carry themselves. But when you put all of these pieces together and you continue to build continuity and get older and I don't want to say get older and get more mature, but as you just naturally age and things that come with experience, that's when you really see teams that have this talent and this good combination of complementary players on both ends of the floor. That's what really takes them to the next level and puts them in that position to really compete for a title. And while Golden State is obviously overcoming some things that we talked about on our last episode, and we'll probably continue to talk about for a little bit, they are still a very tough team to beat. And it says a lot to go out there and take them down. So for the Celtics, I mean, to me, it's just another kind of testament to the product that they're continuing to put out this year because they are as dominant as their record shows.
There was in the fourth quarter, there was a little bit of a uncertainty to what the Warriors were doing. They kind of seem unsure of themselves. And that was like, okay, we're rushing a little bit into our offensive sets. We're not moving the ball as much as we want to. We're essentially just looking for Steph Curry to bail us out. And while Steph is clearly talented enough to do that, I just think there was this sense of like, oh, we have our backs against the wall. We're not the team we might have been last season, and we feel it.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that's going to be something the Warriors front office looks at and says, okay, we need to add some depth because, or at least some veteran presence, like outside of a Looney, outside of a Draymond, outside of the guys you can rely on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something to just be able to keep guys accountable. And I think that fourth quarter kind of showed me it's like, when the going gets tough and like Steph isn't feeling it. Obviously, he's still coming back from that shoulder injury, and maybe you can't get Poole involved as much. And now, okay, a lot of what they do is what helps create shots for Clay. Mm-hmm. And now your offense isn't working that seamless, free basketball, like passing it around type of style that they like to play. Right. It's not as potent as it was before. Sure. They have a lot of questions that they have to answer. And I think, at the start of this game and how they looked in the first half, I'm like, oh, this Warriors team has the Celtics number. They figured them out. And hey, like this Warriors team might actually end up kind of surging. And we'll get to that. We have an award about that a little bit later on. But I think this is a good mental win for the Celtics. I know we don't like to chalk up regular season wins and whatnot, but if you had to put a little bit more importance on a regular season game, this was one of those games to put an emphasis on. Another game that was important, but in a very different way, in a very, very, very different way, was the Toronto Raptors losing, I believe it was a 16-point lead to the Minnesota Timberwolves. To lose again. No Karl Anthony Towns, no Rudy Gobert for the Timberwolves, and the Raptors blew a pretty sizable lead. Scotty Barnes was phenomenal. He was really, really special tonight. Had a season-high 29 points, among other things. Fred VanVleet was great as well. I think Precious Achiuwa stepped in and did some great things. All in all, there were some pretty great performances tonight from that team. But the tail of the tape is the fact that they're 20-26. They just lost a game against Karl Anthony Towns. A Timberwolves team without Karl Anthony Towns and a Timberwolves team without Rudy Gobert. And they followed that up. By the way, the Timberwolves were on a second night of a back-to-back. That's just another thing. After going to the wire in Denver, in the mile-high city, where people talk about the altitude and your lungs feeling heavy.
Hard. Oh, yeah.
Your lungs feeling heavy. These Timberwolves came back in the fourth quarter to beat the Raptors. You know what? On top of that, on Tuesday, they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks after Gary Trent Jr.'s headband fell off from Brook Lopez and he was ejected and whatnot. But there was no Giannis Antetokounmpo and no Chris Middleton in that game. I personally, for covering this team, have given a lot of chances to this squad this season, especially to figure it out. I think they've deserved a kind of leeway, a leash to figure things out and see who they are. But we are now 46 games into this season. It's not working. It quite frankly isn't working. And I don't know who gets moved. I don't know what moves they make, but the whole reports that we see about them waiting until February 1st, them waiting until the deadline to see what this team can be. Let's stop that. Let's stop the whole, let's give this team more time. This team has been given time. They have figured it out. And we have figured it out. They don't work. This vision, I wrote about it in the newsletter, but this Vision 6-9 thing that they've created, I think they've tried to optimize and really, really refine on these small margins to win without having great shooting, to win possession battles, to be this chaotic defense. And that's a taxing style to play. It just doesn't work when you don't have depth. And the Raptors right now don't have depth. So I don't know what the move is. I'm not sure what they're going to do. That has been talked about ad nauseum on this podcast, on different podcasts, in writing, in ink, whatever you want to do. It has been talked about a bunch. Moving Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., maybe an OG Anunoby. Who knows at this point what will happen? I think the one thing we do know from this month of basketball is that the current situation in the Toronto Raptors basketball team, the core, just doesn't work. That's it.
I've never heard you be this down on your Raptors. I don't know that I've ever heard, you could have been, but I don't know that I've never heard it. And so part of me, God, I want to pick it all apart. Obviously that's not what we're doing today, but I know how you feel. I'm in a similar place with the Mavs. Obviously the Raptors losing 2 tough ones kind of in a short amount of time. That stings a little bit, but I am curious to see, because we know, I mean, we've seen on multiple occasions how Masai goes about his business. And so he's someone that you can put a lot of trust in. And at least in my opinion, that's my read on him. I think you probably share the same sentiment. So I am intrigued to see how aggressive he is, how motivated he is to really shake things up, and how he goes about it, and kind of what direction he looks to go, because another thing that we've talked about is the different options and the different directions that they could go.
Absolutely.
So I'm really intrigued to see that with them. And I think there are several teams, as we're kind of going further and further towards the second half, the back half of the season, and marching towards that deadline. I think it's really interesting to see these teams and how they might lean in terms of, okay, this is the direction that we need to be going, or this is exactly how we need to improve. Because while there's a lot of talent in this league right now, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think even both conferences are pretty wide open for teams to potentially be buyers and try and take that next step forward to get a leg up in each of, I guess, the respective conferences.
I'm curious to see what they do, because there is I think, despite me being all doom and gloom today, there is an argument to be had that they could be buyers, and that, by adding depth and by maybe grabbing that center that they've been trying to get for the last 3 seasons, that a lot of these problems that we've talked about get solved. That there's a possibility in that. There's also the possibility of them being sellers and kind of moving in a different direction. The great thing is, to your point, that they have this flexibility. They have these options that they can explore. And I think the fact that, they have all their draft capital moving forward, they have these players that are valued league-wide in an OG Anunoby, in a Pascal Siakam, in a Fred VanVleet, in a Gary Trent Jr. It makes it so that they can assess their options. They can see where they're at. And I understand from a front office perspective that, hey, let's take our time with this and see how we can build things out. But when you lose the way you've been losing, there's really no more room for, hey, let's see how much longer we can push this thing.
Right.
You kind of are who you are at a certain point. And I think the Raptors, especially this season, are just who they are. Yeah. You even look at last year, and it took an exceptional Fred VanVleet season, a really, really good Gary Trent Jr. season, and a Rookie of the Year Scotty Barnes season for this team to be the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
And I think last year was a 100th percentile outcome. This season is the complete opposite of that. And you're seeing the kind of variety, the ranges that this team can go with, and the inconsistencies that come with that. So I guess my thing is, look, at the end of the day, I'm not sure which direction they go in, but I think the thing that is for sure is that they have to choose a direction to go in. They can't remain kind of just letting things fly and see what happens. They have to make a decision here. And that's what we'll see. So enough Raptors talk. My God, enough Raptors talk.
Gotta let it out. You gotta let it out.
Yeah, you gotta let it out. It's tough, and I'm usually Mr. Positive on the timeline. I try to be as positive on the timeline, but when you see the way things are going right now, you kind of have to call it how it is. And I've tried my best to kind of be like, hey, look, there's good things to look forward to here, and there are. Yeah. Again, like I said, even in this game, Scotty Barnes had an awesome superstar level game where you're like, whoa, this is what we're looking forward to in 3-4 years from now.
Right.
And I think Precious Achiuwa had an awesome game too. But it's just like, let's pick a direction. Let's see what happens next. So yeah, that's it on the games tonight. There's a couple of games going on as well as we kind of go through these things. But we're going to be talking about awards, ladies and gentlemen. And awards are good things to be betting on preseason. Wouldn't you agree, Lauren?
Absolutely. Continue, please. Please continue.
Think you know what way it's going to go. Make your bet at Sports Interaction. Whatever your sport, Sports Interaction has you covered. Pre-game live betting on all major sports and prop bets. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Sports Interaction now has an app, by the way, so scan that QR code you see on the screen to download. So look, we're going to be talking about our kind of picks, just our midseason picks. Like I said, we're about halfway through the season, a little bit more than halfway through the NBA season. So it's a good time to just double check where we're at with our awards. We're also going to be doing some fun awards. I think we should maybe do those at the beginning and then go through our other stuff because it'll be quick. So
yeah, we can do that.
I might have just talked about them, but what about the most depressing team? What is your most depressing team this season, Lauren?
I hate to say it, and it sounds to me like we're going different directions here. My most depressing team is the Charlotte Hornets.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
I feel like it's now even better timed with the LaMelo injury. Not that there's anything positive about that, because that's just unfortunate. But in more ways than I can count, the Hornets, I just feel like, you know how we, with our teams, with the Mavs and the Raptors, we're over here, please pick a direction. For Charlotte, I don't really know that they have a whole lot of options for what their direction really is. They're kind of in this state of, okay, yeah, we're tanking and this draft is going to be a really great opportunity for them. But these guys that they're continuing to draft with lottery picks, I mean, you got James Bouknight, you got Mark Williams, you've got these guys, I mean, Jalen McDaniels is a guy that's putting it together, and he's been a good, I guess, late bloomer in a way. Sure. And so I think they have guys on JT Thor, they got guys on their team that are intriguing, but they don't have a direction. They don't have a young core that you can necessarily look at and be like, oh yeah, there's the vision. Oh yeah, there's what it's going to be in X number of years, the way you can with an Indiana Pacers or I mean, even the Raptors or something, you know. So I hate to say it because I think LaMelo's a really fun player, but I didn't like the coaching hire. They've got more things than they can probably ever wanted to deal with off of the floor. So it is depressing over in Charlotte from where I'm standing.
It is depressing. And I think, you know, tack on the Miles Bridges situation and how that kind of worked out. I think there's no question that they've been a tough team to watch. Again, I told you guys last week that they're probably one of my least watched teams, them and the Houston Rockets, which we'll get to in a second for one of the other awards. They are landslide winners for one of the other fun awards we've got here. But I think the Charlotte pick is great. You know, to be fair, I would say if there's any reason for them to be a depressing team this season, this is a good season to be that team because, hey, you might end up with a Victor Wembanyama. You might end up with a Scoot Henderson, Amen Thompson. And now, like you said, within Indiana, things start to make sense a little bit more. You have LaMelo, you have that second guy, and okay, now let's build and see what we can.
100%.
Let's see what we can have. My most depressing team, and this is kind of like I'm not going to be picking the Raptors, by the way. Although there's a very good argument to be had that is a good pick. I'm going to be taking the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that's the reason I have them as a most depressing team is just because. Look, we're in year 20 of LeBron James's career. He's 38 years old. He is a player that I've watched since the moment I knew what basketball was. And it's very, very tough for me to see him just be kind of like going out there and seeing if he can break Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record and seeing if he can just pull out and scrape out wins with guys like Wenyen Gabriel and Kendrick Nunn on the court. And look, I understand the Lakers are in a tough spot because of how old LeBron is and because of AD's questions of health and whatnot, and they don't have many assets moving forward, so they want to make sure their long-term situation is clear. But at the end of the day, we've talked about this. When you're in a situation where you have LeBron James, who's playing out of his mind, by the way, just absolutely insane, especially in the month of January, it's tough for me to kind of have any sort of remorse, if you will. I'm not sure if that's the word to be using here, but it doesn't make sense to me to be like, oh, you know what? I understand the Lakers situation and looking at this from a long-term view because you have two players who might start in the All-Star game. LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they got the voting returns today. They are probably going to start in the All-Star game. These are two guys that at their best can be top 10, top 5 players in the league. And especially LeBron at his best can be one of the best, if not the best in the NBA. So to say you don't believe in those players, to even give them a little bit of a chance, I don't understand that. I think for that reason, they're my most depressing team. So it's tough to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. When I'm looking at this most depressing team, I'm like, do you want to take it? There are so many different ways you could take it. And when you're looking at teams that are, I guess, disappointing and maybe underwhelming, and it's kind of like you're just grasping at straws, it's just kind of, that could very much be more depressing than a team that, some of these younger teams that while they might be struggling, this is what they need to be doing to take that next step forward. And if you're kind of in that state of mediocrity, especially when you have two potential starting all-stars and you're looking at your current landscape in the Western Conference, that's quite depressing. So I'm with you there.
I got you. So from depressing to exciting, what is your most exciting team to watch? Or I guess just what's the team that's had you the most excited this season?
It's such a easy answer, at least for me, but to me, it's the Memphis Grizzlies. They're young, they're winning. To me, in my opinion, they have the most exciting player in basketball on both ends of the floor. I mean, John Morant is unbelievable. And on top of that, you have their young core that continues to develop that we discussed last week, but they also have these rookies who they've brought in and are intriguing. And for them to draft those guys in the place that they drafted them in and them come in and play quality minutes and produce and show what they can do. I think they're a really fun young team, and they're a perfect example of guys that lock in, understand their roles, understand the direction that they're going, the timeline that they're on the same page with their coach. I mean, that's what you want to be as your team. And so I enjoy watching them. I think everybody enjoys watching them. And I mean, how can you not love a young team that's ready to prove themselves?
They talk so much trash too. And
they do. I kind of love it. I love it.
I know people hate it, and I think it's just like a very common thing to be like, all right, we're tired of this act and whatnot. But man, it's really fun when teams are winning and winning a lot of games and they're talking shit. You know what I mean? And they're having a lot of fun with it. I will say with the Grizzlies, I think one of the most impressive parts to me is the fact that they've had Jaren Jackson Jr. out for an extended time. They've had Desmond Bane be out for a month. They've had John Morant be in and out of the lineup for a little bit too. Hasn't mattered. They have won. They have consistently won games. And now that they're all healthy, I think they're going on a huge run right now. Obviously, I believe they have the best winning streak in the NBA. They do.
Last I checked, it was 10 or 11 maybe.
Yeah, they're at 11. So, I mean, look, they're going to keep going. I don't know how long they're going to keep this winning streak going for. But to your point, it makes a lot of sense that you would pick them for your most exciting team. My most exciting team has to be the team that is right under the Memphis Grizzlies. It is the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, I love it. I almost went that route. I did.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the fact that we're sitting here 40-something games, almost 50 games into the NBA season, and the Sacramento Kings are 25-18. They've won 5 in a row. They are the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. God. I don't think anybody expected that. And look, I am on record. I have made a video prior to this season saying that I believe the Sacramento Kings had an unbelievable offseason. They did the right thing. They gave shooters to De'Aaron Fox, and they paired De'Aaron Fox with a guy like Domantas Sabonis that worked so well. To be honest with you, I knew that they were going to be very good. Did I know they were going to be this good? Not a clue. I thought, look, they're going to be a playing team. They're going to be frisky. They're going to be fun. They might be where the Thunder are right now. I thought they'd be fighting, you know?
That's what I thought too.
They're dominating. They are one of the best offenses in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis probably will both be all-stars, with Domantas Sabonis being the surefire all-star. I think Domantas Sabonis probably ends up being an all-NBA player. And when it comes to Kevin Huerter and what he's establishing and kind of developing into as this three-point shooter who can create off the bounce and play defense a little bit as well. I think his defense is an underrated part of his game.
Yeah.
To the fact that they have these young guys in a Davion Mitchell and a Keegan Murray, and then you have Fox, like I mentioned, with Malik Monk as this shooter and creator off the bench. The Kings are just plain fun to watch. And on top of that, I wanted to kind of bring this up. Let me pull it up before I double check, but I'm pretty sure they have played like the most clutch games in the NBA. So if you pull up, let me just double check before I go ranting here. But I believe they've played the most clutch games in the NBA. They have not. I am wrong, but they're pretty up there.
Are they up there? Yeah.
So they've played 24 clutch games, but it just seems like every single time that I watch this team, they are in a nail biter. Mm-hmm. They are at the wire. And that's probably why De'Aaron Fox will end up winning the clutch player of the year, although I'm sure your guy Luka has something to say about that. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Kings are just so much fun to watch. And the offense is high octane. They play a lot of close games. Everybody is kind of clicking. They're having fun. The Beam, out of all things, the Beam is just one of the best marketing ploys in sports right now.
It is. It so is.
So yeah, I gotta go with the Beam team right now.
I like the pick. I really do, because I mean, as much as people wanted to just trash on Sacramento and continue to being like, it's never gonna happen. It's, the trade was a bad trade, all this X, Y, and Z. They've come in, new coach. Everybody looks like they want to play together, play for each other. You go out, you make the trades they're not, I mean, for a team that's in California is by far the kind of lower end tier of the California teams. To go out there to make the free agent signings, not easy to do. You have to go pay the premium to get guys that not only are good fits, but then want to leave and come play. Your like, that is not easy to do. It's really not. And so for them to identify those guys, you've got the Malik Monk, the De'Aaron Fox connection, the shooting, Kevin Huerter looking to continue to establish himself in the league, Sabonis being in a better situation. They've done so many things right. And then even the Keegan Murray pick, without going too far back, finding guys that will sign up and take something like that on to really kind of embody the identity of a rebuild culture and get themselves back on the map. Not easy to do, especially when you're selecting that high. So, I mean, Monty McNair, the Kings, they've done a really, really great job. And so to see them have the success, to see the city rally around them and be like, hey, we never left. We've been here. The Beam team, the Kings fans, we're here. And so it's really amazing to see. And I mean, props to them for proving me wrong, because I also had them in the play-in going into this season. So I'm happy for them.
I think it's safe to say that they will be breaking that playoff drought, by the way. I think it is safe to say.
I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Shout out to the people in Sacramento. Hopefully, wink, wink to our producers here in SDPN. Send me out to a game. I'd love to go check out Sacramento. No, anyways. So when it comes to the awards, we'll keep going here. Team most likely to disappoint in the second half of the season. So this is a team that through the next 40 whatever games probably ends up, taking a little bit of a dive. Who do you have here?
I have the Atlanta Hawks here.
Ooh, okay.
I know. Right. I think
they were in consideration for me too.
How I feel about the foundation issues. If you just, I think that there's a chance things could go right and they could, go the right direction. But to me, it's like one of those things where I look at, I'm like, I just see a few too many cracks in the foundation. And I think there are plenty of other teams that are in similar situations. But to me, a coach player disconnect. I saw that with Luka and Rick. I can see what that does. And I hate to see that anywhere. And so
it's not good.
It's hard for me to have a whole lot of confidence in them. That really just kind of sums it up. Where are you at?
Yeah, I think I was looking at this like, okay, so what team probably will be active at the deadline and what team is in kind of like the middle ground that might take a step back here. I think they've had a really awesome season, but I could see the Utah Jazz taking a little bit of a dip. Just because of the fact that, like, look, they might end up moving a Jared Vanderbilt. They probably end up moving a Kelly Olynyk or a Jordan Clarkson. And if they end up making some of those trades, they are obviously going to struggle. Right. I think Lauri Markkanen has proven that he is an all-star player. He is here to stay. He has kind of catapulted himself into a different direction. I'm going to give another award to him later down the road, but I think that's a surefire kind of thing. But at the same time, it's possible for this team to take a slight dip. Maybe they're one of those teams. Like if we look at the Western Conference right now, right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. 8 teams from 6 to 13 separated by 2.5 games. That's insane.
That is crazy.
Just hearing it out loud sounds insane. So you have the Lakers, the Suns, the Trailblazers, the Thunder, the Warriors, the Clippers, Minnesota, and obviously the Jazz. And I think there's going to be some teams going up in that. I think the Warriors are going to be surging a little bit. I think the Clippers will figure it out. Minnesota, they probably get healthy with Cat and Gobert, and they kind of figure things out a little bit more. The Suns, who knows what happens with them? The Lakers, who knows what happens with them? I think there's a chance the Jazz end up being the odd team out here. So we'll see. I don't know, but I think that would be my bet at this moment. Yeah. Okay, cool. Most likely to surge in the second half of the season. What do you got?
I have a feeling we went the same direction here, but I picked the Golden State Warriors. I think they're primed to either make a move, and then you get Steph kind of get back in his rhythm. Jordan Poole is having a phenomenal year. So I think that they're kind of, their stage is set to kind of take that leap forward. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, so I knew you were going to say the Warriors, and I agree. I think you're totally right if I wanted to. But just to kind of give another team consideration, I think the Miami Heat is another team that we might consider because they did this last year. They probably are kind of following the exact same formula as they did last year where, like, Jimmy takes his time coming out the gate. They're kind of slow, figuring things out. Bam has been this dominant force, and then look, now Jimmy is playing more games. They're figuring things out a little bit more. Their lineup makes a lot of sense. Gabe Vincent is playing more minutes. So I think they are going to surge and figure things out. Now, I don't know how that plays into like the Eastern Conference because they're 3 games back of the Cavaliers. They have won 7 of their last 10, but at the same time, how do you end up catching the Cavs or the Nets? Maybe some injuries play some factors here, but I do think with Jimmy playing more games and with, kind of the Heat figuring things out over the last month or so, that they could be another team that surges up. So watch out for the Miami Heat. Worst watch. I'm just going to go ahead and say this real quick. The Houston Rockets are the worst watch in the NBA.
That's fun.
You mentioned the Charlotte Hornets. They're probably a close second. The Detroit Pistons are probably a close third, but the Houston Rockets are just god-awful to watch. And it has nothing to do with the players. I mean, it does have something to do with the players, actually. I lied. It does have something to do with the players because they do not pass the ball. They do not move. It just seems like it is a lot of, there's a lot of I in team in the situation where they really don't move the ball at all. And to your point of like teams that aren't, how do you put this? Like there's some dysfunction in the organization. I think that John Wall podcast kind of hinted at a lot of the things that were going on there and how things are ran. They're dead last in assists. They average 22 assists a game. They don't pass the ball at all. Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. are very much so playing you take a turn, I take a turn, pretty much every possession. And even in those circumstances, those two young guys aren't necessarily showing like the best potential. So it's tough to watch. I think Alperen Şengün has had some really nice flashes. I'm high on him. I like him. I think he's cool. But at the same time, man, it is tough to watch the Houston Rockets. And I hope for their sake that they do end up getting a Victor Wembanyama or a Scoot Henderson to kind of give them some life. But because right now it's tough. It is tough to see that team. Man, it is so tough to watch. I think I've only watched like 4 games, and every time I'm like, no, I can't keep doing this. Why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah, I mean, the Mavs play them a number of times every single year. And so every single time I'm watching them, it's like, I mean, I really liked the Jabari Smith pick, and I still think it's going to end up being a good pick for them. But when I see them playing together, like you said, there's not a lot of movement. There's a lot of ISO ball, and you're just kind of, I love Alperen Şengün. He is so fun. The personality is great. I think the fit there, like from a personality standpoint and a play standpoint, I think he was a home run pick.
Right.
And I love Steven Silas, so it's just breaking my heart that it is just not working out, but it's so clear that it's not working out. And, I think that getting another high draft pick is going to bode really well for them, especially given their pick situation and their financial situation. I think they're going to be just fine. But right now, I don't know that this backcourt duo long term is really going to be, you know, this backcourt of the future that maybe they would like to think that it will be. And so I think, you know, signing Kevin Porter Jr. to that extension was key, and he's going to be good. But in terms of getting to where you want to be and find yourselves in like a Memphis Grizzlies or a New Orleans Pelicans type situation, there's going to need to be some changes. And it's too early to do that right now. But I think we're already kind of starting to see the flaws in the scheme. And some of that may come down to coaching. Maybe we'll see a shift there before a bigger player personnel shift. But I just, right now on a night-to-night basis, I'm like, this just seems like a little bit more than tanking to me. And it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch.
Also, like, what's with the James Harden news? I don't understand that even in the slightest. Like, if you have Jalen Green, if you have Kevin Porter Jr., if you have these young guys that you're trying to develop, there is no reason to go out there and try to sign a guy who is trying to win a chance. I don't understand that logic. I don't even understand where the rumors are coming from, other than the fact that he enjoys playing with Eric Gordon. So I don't know. I don't understand that.
And the nightlife.
And the nightlife. Yes, jerseys retired and all that.
All of that.
Best watch. What is the best watch for you in the NBA?
So this is kind of where I took a little bit of I could have easily said Memphis here as well for the same reasons I said exciting team, but this is where I went with the Beam team because for all the reasons we talked about before, I love the product that they're putting out there, and I love watching guys that want to play for each other and that just complement each other well. So it's really that simple for me. It's got to be the Beam team.
Yeah, this was tough for me. I enjoy watching a few teams because the team that I predominantly watch has been a struggle to watch this year.
Feel that?
Yeah, but look, no, there's two teams, and it's tough for me to answer because these teams have both been so fun to watch. Because Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram are injured right now, I'm not going to give them the award. Although if you guys were healthy, you guys would be the winners of this award. I think it has been so fun to watch Zion be at his best. Brandon Ingram has been hurt for most of the season, but the rest of the young core that the Pelicans have, and we talked about that last podcast, between Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, all those guys, it has been so fun to watch them develop, figure things out, and they play an entertaining brand of basketball. I will say, my team, the selection I have, is the Denver Nuggets. It is there is not a time where it is not entertaining to watch Nikola Jokic play basketball. The dude is just absolutely insane at playing basketball. I was watching the Minnesota game last night, and that was such a fun. It was just so entertaining to watch. It was literally. Sorry, I'm going to charge my laptop here for a second. It was genuinely the most fun game that I've seen in a minute. And like, I've watched a good amount of Nuggets games this season. Every time I turn on a game, I'm saying, how is Nikola Jokic going to make this ridiculous pass? And the optionality that he has, plus the guys that are surrounding him, makes so much sense. It is just such a fun brand of offensive basketball that it's probably the best brand of basketball this season. I know the Kings are up there. I know the Pelicans are up there. Grizzlies, obviously, even the Celtics. But the Nuggets, you can turn on a game and every night be like, whoa, this is high octane. This is fun. So yeah, that's my pick. We'll make the next one quick, and then we'll go through our actual awards. Okay. Next star to ask out. I'm going to be quick on this one. I kind of I kind of just said it earlier with the most depressing team. I do think LeBron James asks out. And I don't think Lakers fans will blame him, to be honest with you. I really don't think Lakers fans will blame him. I think obviously he can't get traded this year. But in the summer, I would imagine that we get that Woj or Shams bomb saying that the Lakers and LeBron James have agreed to mutually part ways and that they will be looking at options to trade him. That'll be crazy because I don't know what the value of a guy who's 39 years old. Yeah, right. Like 39 years old, but he's also arguably the greatest player of all time. How do you get a package for that is satisfying? I have no idea. That's a bridge we'll cross, but I think if I had to pick the next star to ask out, it'd be LeBron right now.
You know, I really thought I was going to bring some spice to the Objective Basketball podcast tonight, but I also picked LeBron James.
Wow, okay. All right.
I did. I think there are easier routes to probably go right now for like the trade deadline, but to me, this just feels like the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like the writing's on the wall. And look, there are other options out there. You can say, I don't believe in the Brooklyn Nets, and after this season, Kevin Durant will ask out again, and Kyrie Irving is gone. So maybe that's a situation that you see. Maybe the guy I'm watching right now, Damian Lillard, maybe he gets tired. He says, "I'm not loyal anymore," and calls it a day. But yeah, I think that's a good pick from both of us, to be honest with you. Maybe not a hot take anymore if both of us agree on that.
I know. I'm kind of like, wow.
Let's do the awards. We'll do them. I think, honestly, as much as we talk about like how the award races are all crazy, I think some of these are pretty solidified.
I agree.
Early on. I want to start with the one that's the most solidified right now, and that's Rookie of the Year. I think Paolo Banchero is running away with it. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Yeah,
I do. Love him.
I don't think there's any disputing that right now. I mean, he's leading all rookies in points, and on top of that, he has been tremendous. I think he has shown more potential than people imagined in his first season. When it comes to guys who are, we kind of talked about it in our Young Cores podcast last week, but just the potential that he's shown in the 30 some odd games that he's played is really like, you're like, whoa, this is going to be a superstar player. He's going to be a top 10, top 15 guy in the league. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
He's averaging 21 points. He's not shooting that well from the field, but that really doesn't matter that much when you're a rookie. He's still putting up 21, 6, and 4. And the Magic are, I wouldn't say they're like exceeding expectations by any means, but they're frisky. They're not like this easy competition every night. And I think that's thanks to Paolo plus Franz. The Magic have something good going. I think he's Rookie of the Year. Easy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I don't think that there's a whole lot disputing it. I mean, I think everything is panning out for him just as the Magic hoped it would.
So where do you sit on the most improved player? This is the award that kind of grinds my gears the most. I get really, really angry about how people discuss this award. Yeah. I think personally, Ja Morant shouldn't have been the most improved player last year. I think, yes, he was great and he was good and he improved, but we are talking about most improved. So the most amount of improvement in a season. And I have a pick, but I'm kind of curious where you land on this. So you tell me, you tell me what you think.
So I've got 3 guys that I think need to add. To me, this is the discussion. These 3.
Okay.
To me, when we're talking, because I'm with you. If you're a name that gets thrown around and potentially even an MVP, you are not in the most improved. That is not what that award is for. Yeah. You have a separate award
Alexander,
for you.
I'm sorry. Love you, bud. Great guy, great player. He's going to be awesome. You are in the MVP conversation. You are not in the most improved conversation.
I'm right there. I'm 100% there with you. So for me, the player that has improved the most, completely exceeded expectations to the point where it's a completely different conversation around this player is Lauri Markkanen. To me, that's where I'm at. The other 2 guys, Tyrese Halliburton, who I think is a very popular one, but another guy who I got to give it to him is Jalen Brunson. I think he's put himself in a different category. The numbers, I think when you compare at face value to Tyrese and to Markkanen, they're not exactly the same. Obviously, both teams or all 3 of those teams function completely differently, but Jalen Brunson, in terms of improving and putting himself in a completely different category, to me, that's what this award is if you go from either role player or starter to all-star level talent, that is what this award is about. And for me, Lauri Markkanen has gone from, okay, I just got relocated to this situation to now I'm an all-star level talent that's showing crazy potential that you now want to build your franchise around. Maybe not him individually, but he's a key piece that you just cannot even entertain the thought of trading, in my opinion. So that, for me, is why he gets the award.
Yeah, so I'm with you there. I picked Lauri Markkanen. I think he's the guy to go with when it comes to most improved. I think I wrote an article about this guy, but for him to go from where he was in Chicago in like, oh, this is damaged goods, we don't want to touch him. Nobody wants to trade for him, even as a restricted free agent on his rookie deal. That's kind of like unheard of trade value wise. He goes to Cleveland. He's thrown into this weird mix where he has to play small forward And that actually ends up doing him a lot of good. He figures things out. He's like, oh, maybe I can be a wing in this league as a 7-footer. And then he moves to Utah, and he's given free reign to do whatever the hell he wants as a wing, and he exceeds. He's being an all-star player. I think he is my most improved player so far. You brought up usage. And just, when it comes to Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton, I think that's a fine line we have to toggle, because a lot of the most improved award comes down to usage and guys getting more opportunities. I think all three of those guys have been given more opportunity, especially Jalen Brunson, who last season his usage was 21%. Now it's 27%. Lauri Markkanen, his usage was 19% last year, and now it's 25%, which is a huge jump. And Tyrese Halliburton went from 20 to 24. So I think, but you have to consider usage when it comes to the most improved award. But at the same time, it's usage plus opportunity plus figuring out what the greatest leap is. I think last year Halliburton was very, very good, and when he got to Indiana, it was pretty obvious that he was going to have a really great season following up this year. Jalen Brunson, I think it was obvious that with just increased opportunity, not playing behind Luka Doncic and being the number one guard on a team, that he was obviously going to put up better numbers, be an all-star caliber player. I think those two things were obvious. They didn't improve necessarily. They were just given more opportunity. Whereas I think Lauri Markkanen was given more opportunity, but he also improved. So I'm with you on that. I think Lauri Markkanen kind of gets the pick on this one. So we're 2 for 2 right now.
We are.
I'm kind of curious. So let's go with Defensive Player of the Year, because I think you can go two ways with this. I really do think you can go two ways with this. I understand that Brook Lopez was leading the race at the start of the year, but I think the guy I'm about to pick has overtaken him. And he's a guy that you mentioned in your most fun team, Jaren Jackson Jr. Are you on the same page with me?
I am on the same page with you.
Nice. Okay, we're 3 for 3.
3 for 3.
Yes, absolutely. Look, hey, by the way, I will say we got some good chemistry, because on these lists we've been doing, we've been money for the most part.
We've been pretty in sync.
Other than the Detroit pick, which
and
I had
me dropping, Cleveland.
I had people message me, be like, "Listen, you have to tell Lauren about Detroit. I don't know, man." And I'm like, look, you can be optimistic about a team. That is completely fine. But yes, so I have Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. I think the fact that he has the best block percentage in NBA history is the craziest thing. He's blocking over 10% of shots that it comes his way. That is just unheard of. It is insane to even imagine. He's made the Grizzlies the number one defense in the NBA. He's elevated them from, I believe, being dead last without him to number one. That is a massive difference, a massive impact to a team's defense. I think Brook Lopez, the fact that he has a guy like Drew Holiday beside him to be this perimeter defender, they play a great pick and roll partners. They really like the way they defend the pick and roll between Drew and Brook. It's seamless. It's awesome. But Jaren has to cover for Ja Morant. And I love Ja, but I think the fact that you have weaker defenders around you gives you an added little thing for me, a note, if you will, a tidbit to be like, hey, Ja isn't that great of a defender. I don't think Bane, although I think Bane is a better defender than Morant, he hasn't really blown me out the water. I think Dylan Brooks is a really good defender, but there are more good defenders on the Milwaukee Bucks than there are on the Memphis Grizzlies. So I'm going to take Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he's been so crucial to what the Grizzlies do on defense. Yeah. And I mean, they're title hopes, to be honest with you. I think he's like the key. He's the X factor here for swinging if they can win the NBA championship this year. I really do think they're a championship team. It's just, can they figure it out? Can Jaren Jackson Jr. be this guy in the playoffs for them? And hey, we'll see what happens. I think he is Defensive Player of the Year. He should have been the Defensive Player of the Year last year, by the way, is my pick, but that's neither here nor there. So
yeah, I think that they can do it this year. I think that what he brings to in terms of just elevating, like you said, it's not, if you take him out of the equation, we're having an entirely different conversation about the Memphis Grizzlies. And so when you have a guy that impacts a team stat that is so, so crucial to success, you can't overlook that. Yeah. It's not just about the blocks. It's not just about the rebounds. It's about elevating team defense, at least for me when it comes to this award. And at least this year, as a whole, I know that there's a solid argument for Brook Lopez, but as a whole, I think the best argument and best example for that case is Jaren Jackson Jr.
There are better team defenders. I mean, when you have Giannis beside you on the help side, ready to block any type of shot, and when you have Drew Holiday commanding the point of attack, I think your job is a little bit easier as a rim protector in that situation. Not saying that Brook is not a good defender. I mean, he really was incredible, and he's doing a great job on the kind of like rim protecting side of things. But Jaren Jackson Jr. can step out on the perimeter. He can be a little bit more versatile at that point of attack situation or guarding the pick and roll a little bit higher, and he can play drop. He can block shots like crazy. He's a rim protector, but he can also step out on guards. I think that versatility plus the fact that what he's done to elevate this Grizzlies defense, he's the runaway for me. Runaway. I shouldn't say runaway, but he is the guy I'm picking right now to be Defensive Player of the Year. We are 3 for 3, Miss Gunn. We are 3 for 3. So maybe one, I'm leaving MVP to last because I feel like that's going to be the point of contention here. I feel like that probably will be. Sixth Man of the Year. Who do you got?
This kind of goes in line with my who's going to surge in the second half of the season. And so for me, it's Jordan Poole. I think the Warriors are set to kind of take this next step forward. He has been a big part of their team this year. Obviously, that has to do with some of Steph Curry's absence, but I do think that he's going to kind of continue this level of play and be essential to what they do put together in the second half of the season. And sometimes that's when you kind of see races for awards kind of in this category, at this tier, kind of this is where you see guys start to separate themselves. And so I think this is going to be Jordan Poole's opportunity to kind of solidify that in this last stretch. And I think he's set to do it.
I like it. I think I sort of went about this award a little bit differently in that, like, okay, who is my sixth man of the year right now versus who will end up being? If I had to say after 82 games, who will end up being the sixth man of the year, I think my pick will be Jordan Poole because with them getting healthy, Poole moves back to the bench. It makes a lot of sense. Right now, if you had to pick, Poole has started more games than he's come off the bench for. So I get you on that perspective. So for me, I picked Christian Wood, your guy. I picked him to be the sixth man of the year. He hasn't started as much games, although I know he is in that starting spot right now. Right. It's difficult to determine this because it does have to do with starting and not starting games. To your point, because of the fact that the Warriors will probably surge in the second half of the season, I can see Jordan Poole winning this. But right now, if I had to go 45 games in, I'm giving it to your guy, Christian Wood. Yeah.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take any positivity in Mavs world right now.
Hey, I mean, look, that contract extension going to be tough when he's like, I just won sixth man of the year for you guys.
Every day that goes by and that extension hasn't been signed, I'm like, oh, people, that dollar bill's just, it's going up.
It's going up. Yeah, I agree. I was watching the Hawks Mavs, I think, second half, and he was really, really good in that game.
He was very good.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, he's the guy who, if the Mavericks are going to commit to him being at the 5, their offensive juice is just so fun. They have a lot of talent offensively when he's playing the 5. Now on the other side, the defense drops off, and you're left wondering what's going to happen there. But I think when it comes to offensive output, there's no question that for me it's Christian right now.
It sure is.
Okay, so we're down to 2 awards. I feel like these are the awards where you can kind of go in multiple directions. I'll start with Coach of the Year.
Okay.
I'll give you my pick real quick. So I think my Coach of the Year is Jacques Vaughn. And the reason I picked Jacques Vaughn is because coming into the season with Steve Nash, the firing, what happened with the Kyrie situation, we won't go into that too deep. The Kevin Durant trade rumors, all the mess that happened with the Brooklyn Nets for the first 2 weeks of the season. They were 2-7. And for them to now be, just to double check, they are let me double check just to make sure, Nets fans, I don't want to do you guys wrong. They are 27-16. And while Kevin Durant is out of the lineup and they've lost 3 in a row, I imagine they will stay afloat to the point where they will still be a playoff team. Mm-hmm. Before Jacques Vaughn signed on, they were not a playoff team. They looked abysmal. They looked like everybody hated each other. And that has completely changed. Nick Claxton looks like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I know we didn't mention him in the DPOY race, but he definitely deserves kind of a nod there. Yeah. When it comes to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they have surged in a massive way. And I think it's because Jacques Vaughn has tweaked with the lineups a little bit to have players that make more sense defensively around them. I think Ben Simmons has looked good, even though that he's gone through stretches where he's kind of looked like a shell of himself. I think not playing the small guard lineups with, Seth Curry and Kyrie Irving and throwing Royce O'Neal in there instead, and maybe throwing Yuta Watanabe and TJ Warren figuring it out. I think Jacques Vaughn has got these guys to buy in. And that is such a huge aspect. I mean, for an interim coach to come in and flip the script on a team that just seemed like it was doomed. Yeah. I think he wins Coach of the Year. And by the way, I believe that would be the first interim coach in NBA history to win Coach of the Year. So I'm giving it to him. What about you?
Yeah, I was between him and the guy that I ended up giving it to, and I have to give it to Coach Mazzulla in Boston. And
nice.
It's
a similar situation, right?
Similar situation in terms of having to overcome a lot of adversity, having to deal with things that you wouldn't have thought of, and just being able to come in and have such success. And obviously you've got a team that has a really talented duo, very similar to the way the Nets did. I think what Coach Vaughn has done in Brooklyn has been crazy in terms of how you can go from having a guy, not just your star player, but having a guy like Kevin Durant go from, oh, I want to be traded and tweets and whatever, to all of a sudden you find yourself in this position. I do think that there's an element or an aspect to that that's more impressive than the level of dominance that we're seeing from Boston. So either way, I think either of these coaches getting the award, I think both are very worthy and have really strong resumes to qualify them for this award. Yeah. So I do look forward to see who gets it. But yeah, I mean, both of these teams, I think kind of what we see in the second half of the season and where they go, or maybe where they potentially even take steps back. I do wonder how that's going to kind of, I guess, impact the race and who kind of separates themselves. But yeah, I'd be more than thrilled with either of these guys winning.
And hey, these aren't the only guys that should be in consideration. No. I think Taylor Jenkins in Memphis, I mentioned the injuries earlier. The fact that you somehow stay resilient and you are at the top of the West or near the top of the West, despite those injuries, is something that is a massive testament to the kind of continuity that they've established there. I think Mike Brown and the offense that he's established with the Sacramento Kings is also something that kind of deserves recognition. So I don't know. Between those guys, I think it could go any way. But
I think so too.
I think our guys are probably pretty good picks. Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do it. Most valuable player. Let's talk about it. I'm going to go out and say it. All right. I'm just going to go out and throw it out there. I think Luka Doncic has been incredible. I think there is tons of merit to the type of performance that he's putting out there. There's no question just how insane it is. The 60-20-10 night, that was incredible. I mean, man, the offensive output that he's doing every single night is also incredible. He is going to win an MVP at some point in his career. There is no question. I'm still going to take Nikola Jokic.
Wow.
I know. And it's so wild to say. It's just, I really do think averaging a near triple-double at the top of the Western Conference. Coming into the season, I said the only way I would vote for Nikola Jokic for a third straight season is if the Nuggets were the first seed and he's averaging a triple-double. And he is doing exactly that. He's doing exactly that. So I can't fall back on my word here.
Yeah.
I have to double down on it. Look, the Nuggets are the number one team in the West. I don't think they're running away with the West by any means. Memphis is right behind them, and Sacramento is kind of like tailing behind them, if you will. But I do think that they look like they're the best team in the West right now. A lot of that is because of Nikola Jokic. I think what he's done on a night-to-night basis is just flat-out incredible. all the advanced stats, every single advanced stat, he is number one in. Like, you go and you look at the Vorps, you look at the Raptors, you look at the whoever's, all of them, he is number one in. He is even leading the league. I don't know if this is true anymore, but when I was double checking this a little bit ago, he is leading the league in defensive box plus minus. He is not the best defender in the NBA. There's no question. But the fact that he is up there for that type of stuff is just flat out incredible. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Nikola Jokic. I think he deserves it. I think there is very, very fair case to put him there. At the same time, I understand people who would say Luka Doncic. I understand people who would say Jason Tatum or Kevin Durant, even though he's missed a couple of games. Like, I understand the arguments for a lot of these guys. You can give me arguments for pretty much any of the four I just mentioned, and I would say, okay, yeah, you know what? Yeah. I understand. But I'm going to go with Jokic. I got to stick with what I said at the start of the year, which was if they were the first seed and he averages a triple-double, I'm giving him MVP. So, yeah, I'm giving him MVP. Also, I just saw he is the all-time leader, Nuggets all-time leader in assists. So, Nikola Jokic, MVP.
God, it's crazy what he continues to do because it's just year after year. It's like, is this real? Like, the numbers that he puts up it's crazy. And so the numbers, if you're looking at the numbers, the team winning, literally everything that you would ask yourself, what qualifies for the guy to be for someone to be most eligible to win the MVP award, it is 1000% Nikola Jokic.
Yep.
However, he's not my pick because I am a big believer in voter fatigue. Not that I think it's a bunch of BS, but I think it's a bunch of BS, but I also think that you can't ignore it. Yeah. And so he is not my pick. Luka's not my pick because even though I think he's having a phenomenal year and the Mavs. I thought you were gonna go Luka. I know. Sorry, Mavs Twitter. Sorry. Even though he's having a phenomenal year and the Mavs typically second half of the season, they kind of do take a step forward and they really kind of fire on all cylinders and they look great, whatever. I fully believe that there's a decent likelihood that happens. I still think as of right now, the brand of basketball that they're putting out there is not good enough to warrant an MVP award.
Right.
So I go back to Jason Tatum. I do think that, like, for everything I just said about Jokic, I get it. But Jason Tatum, the dominance that they're playing with, I think he's going to continue to win games. I mean, obviously he's got Jaylen Brown and yeah, that's great. But like, I think he's the head of the snake. They're playing at a very high level. I think Coach Mazzulla, I just said why I think he's so great, but I think Boston is set to have a big year. I think they're going to be the team that comes out of the East, which I rarely pick the team that is the first seed in the East, or the first seed in either conference to come out. But I just think that they're built to do it, to pull it off. So I got to give the nod to Jason Tatum. I do think that this is his year.
Look, I mean, again, like I said, you can't go wrong with any of those four picks. They are running away with the Eastern Conference as of right now. They're 34-12. The next best team is 29-16, 4.5 games back is the Milwaukee Bucks. They've won 8 in a row. They just beat the Warriors. We talked about that off the top. Jason Tatum is averaging 31, 8, and 5 on 46, 35, 88 shooting splits. It is absurd numbers. He's playing better defense. His on-ball defense is better. His off-ball defense is better. Yeah, I have no problems with this as the pick. Absolutely no problems with this as a pick. I think the only thing I would say is just the fact that Nikola Jokic is almost averaging a triple-double. And
you can't debate the numbers, the wins. Yeah, it's all there. It's all there.
And look, ladies and gentlemen, for the people who have listened so far into this podcast for us, you can also decide and agree and disagree with us because at the end of the day, it is your opinion. Basketball is beautiful because of that exact reason, because me and Lauren can look at it and be like, look, yeah, Nikola Jokic is doing this incredible, remarkable thing, but on the other side of the coast, I guess if you will, I don't know, Denver is in the middle, whatever, it doesn't matter.
I almost said hemisphere, and I was like, not
hemisphere. On the other side in Massachusetts, even though I don't know how to spell Massachusetts, It is Jason Tatum doing something incredible, and he pulled out a win tonight against the Golden State Warriors despite shooting a poor percentage. He almost had 30 and 20. I believe he might have had 30 and 20, which is incredible. He has figured it out. The game is quote unquote slowed down for him. And I think a lot of players we see that with. We kind of use the term the game is slowed down for him when a player has really sort of, the reads are coming to him. Mm-hmm. He is seeing he's seeing moves 2 times in advance. It's playing chess, right? So I agree with you. I'm with you on that. I'm down. It doesn't.
We will see.
Yeah.
It's going to be, there are a lot of these that are close races. So I do look forward to what, we talk a lot about trades, but I look forward to what things are going to shift between now and the end of the season, because there are so many, injuries, things
trades,
off the court that trades, like you really truly never know who's going to all of a sudden decide, hey, maybe I'm not so happy here. And things just shift from a chemistry standpoint. So I'm excited to see how these things shake out, because there are a lot of really interesting storylines, right, as there always is in the NBA. But right now I do look forward to kind of see where these awards shake out, and just, I guess where the standings even solidify, because even that is still so up in the air right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's like we mentioned at the end of the Young Core episode, this is a really, really great time to be watching NBA basketball, just because the games are at a high level, the teams are playing phenomenal, the parity is great, and the awards, the players that you're watching are also, they're putting up individual performances that we just haven't seen before in NBA history. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tapping in to the Objective Basketball Podcast. Thank you for listening to mine and Lauren's voice for over an hour. You are a real one. We appreciate it. Do all the things for me. You know what I mean? The subscriptions, the tags, the whatever, the geolocations. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
They know what we're talking about. They know the things.
It's late, ladies and gentlemen, but for you, it might be early in the morning listening to this. So we appreciate you listening to the Objective Basketball Podcast, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Follow hosts at Just S Baraheni on all socials and at the Lauren Gunn on Twitter. The Objective Basketball Podcast, delivering the NBA to you like no other.